I'm Greg Jarrett, and you are in the Strategy Room. A new effort is equipping a vast majority of federal correctional officers with pepper spray. It's a tool seen as a game changer in prisons where some say inmates have long tilted the balance of order. Politicians seem to be getting on board with the idea. Senators Pat Toomey, Bob Casey are pushing a bill that would give officers permanent pepper spray access and training. Well, could this program lead to wider calls for reform in prisons? Joining us now to talk about it, political strategist Jessica Tarlov and Liz Peek, both of whom are colorblind on this St. Patrick's Day. What's up with the red?
Green nails. I told you.
Green nails. All right, that's so bad. I'm going to start with Liz first. What do you think of the idea of pepper spray?
Well, I think law enforcement officials, whether they're prison guards or on the street, have to be able to protect themselves. This is the best plan. Let's see what happens. I don't know. The objections appear to be that the weapon, or however you want to describe pepper spray, can end up in the wrong hands, that prisoners can take it away from them, but that's true of any means of self-protection, I presume. To be honest, what kind of really occurs to me is, why in the world are Congress people involved in this decision? I mean, it seems to me this is something where individual prison officials or states or whatever should be making this decision. This does not seem like the right place for a federal law. But
all right. Now, look, it's got to be a little bit better than billy clubs and bullets, don't you think?
I mean, I think so, but I think we need to see how this goes, right? I mean, these are trial runs, and we'll see how it rolls out. But I think what's really important here is that we need to have a larger conversation about prison reform and a culture of violence within it, and how we can make rehabilitation programs and in prison work better so we don't have repeat offenders who spend their whole lives within the system.
Right.
So I think that it's part of that. And to your point about federal employees essentially being involved in this, I mean, I think that it is important, especially looking at budgets and how much prisons cost. I think that's part of it. I mean, the pepper spray plan will cost under $1 million. When you're talking about, I mean, I think it's in Alabama. Yeah, I think it was Alabama. They're talking about it costs like $120 million for this new reform that they're trying to push through. So, I mean, there's a big differential there.
There is, and there's a big conversation about overcrowding in prisons, which I presume makes the safety of the guards that much more of an issue.
And the prisoners themselves.
And the prisoners themselves. Again, we could get into a whole conversation about poverty and single parenting and all the rest of these things, but it seems to me this is just a pretty straightforward matter where if it works, let's do it. And, they must have data to indicate that it's effective.
Well, it seems like alternatives to severe use of force make some logical sense, and I would include, stun guns among the pepper spray advocates.
I don't know. I'm not a stun gun expert. I'm not a pepper spray expert either, but anything with the word gun in it makes me a little bit more
temporary
nervous.
Incapacitation.
Yeah, I understand that, but if that gets into the wrong, we go back to Liz's original point about if that gets into the wrong hands, I think that the consequences are a little bit more dire than a pepper spray.
You've always got that problem.
Yeah, of course you've got it, but I mean, I don't know if we need it at this point. Let's take it with pepper spray and see where we go.
It seems low impact, right? I mean, pepper spray is something that women used to carry around in their purses. Remember that bad old days in New York City when you were worried about getting mugged. So it can't be a particularly harmful substance. So it seems to me like a good place to start.
There are some human rights advocates, though, who are saying, in defense of the prisoners, that they are saying that it's going to block their airways and it does have, larger repercussions for them. But, I mean,
other than overcrowding, is there a serious discussion to be held about prison reform?
Well, I think in some states you're having that. Alabama's one, California's another. California's got a big problem. I mean, the problem is, as is every conversation about government activities, it's one about money. People have not spent and invested the amount of money needed to make prisons safe. And prisons are not safe if they're wildly overcrowded. So judges are now saying, this is, against the law. We've given you limits, particularly in California, I think, and you have to let people go. Well, that really kind of brings home, yes. We need prison reform. We also need maybe a bit broader conversation about whether people should be incarcerated for minor offenses.
Well, the high court
that's going on everywhere.
Stepped in, especially in California, and said, look, you're violating the Eighth Amendment,
exactly.
Cruel and unusual punishment. You got to start dumping people out on the streets. And, of course, the reaction from the general public has been one of abject horror. Are you kidding? You're letting... And then the government is saying, well, we'll let criminals out, but not violent criminals out. That doesn't sound like a very
we do
good
crazy
solution.
things to make a budget all the time, and I don't think it's a good solution. But to your point, I think that we need to also talk about things like education reform within the prison system. I mean, it's not just about how many people are in a room, but what are we doing with the prisoners while they're in there so that when they do get out, whether they're just dumped out or whether they earn their release by serving their time, that they can re-enter society and be valuable members of the community.
All right. Jessica Tarlov, Liz Peek, good to see you both.
Thank you.
Check out foxnews.com for more on this story. I'm Greg Jarrett, and thanks for watching.